Hey, everybody, it's Scott Bischoff coming at you for Detroit Lions podcast. We're going to talk today. This is before the Week 5 matchup about Aidan Hutchinson and the concept of moving him a little out wider to get him more one-on-one looks out of a two-point stance instead of buried inside out of a three-point stance. So stay tuned. It's coming at you right now. Okay, so we are going into the Week 5 matchup against on the road against the Patriots. Hutchinson's been good. I think there's a desire sometimes for people to overlook that we're still talking about a rookie. He's figuring it out. Yes, he had a blow-up game in Week 3 against Week 2 against Washington, and a lot of that was cleanup stuff and pressured where he was. He was benefiting from pressure that others were applying on Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz doesn't have great pocket awareness, so he might be stepping into, it is what it is. Hutchinson's been okay, or even what I would consider to be good as a pass rusher by rookie standards. I suppose that just depends on what your expectation was. I didn't expect him to come and light the world on fire as a pass rusher in year one. I just didn't. The 3-sack performance, I think, has he splashed as a pass rusher? He did in Week 1. He did. I think there were moments where the Lions stunted him inside in Week 3 against Minnesota, where he looked quick and decisive and all those things. But generally speaking, he has looked a little bit overwhelmed, playing out of a three-point stance, and almost in a situation where he's automatically double-teamed. And what I mean by that is, even if he's set outside, like head up on the tackle, he likes to win inside. It's kind of his thing. So if he wins inside, where is he going? If he does win inside, where do you automatically have to go to? To the guard. And one of the things what's not a problem of his game, but to win the way he wins, you got to stand up pretty quick to use his hands the way he uses them, and he is incredibly quick. But if you stand straight up and you do beat the tackle inside, and you're walking straight into a guard who's a big dude, you're going to get stoned. You're going to get rocked. And it's going to look like he is overwhelmed physically. It's going to look the way he looked against Georgia when Michigan played Georgia in the playoffs. And that's how it's looked at times, where it's looked like he, even if he wins with his first step, because he does have great quickness, he's stunting inside or crossing the face of the tackle, and he's pretty much walking right into a guard who's waiting for him because the guard knows that's what's coming. So the questions are: how can the Lions make choices to make Aidan Hutchinson more productive as a pass rusher? Now, we're going to talk about this in a vacuum, because some of the things that I'm going to talk about today might be things that actually hurt the Lions scheme, so may not be feasible. I would say to that side of the debate, I get it, but make it work. Change up your scheme a little bit. I'm not saying to go from the 4-man front where they're at right now back to the 3-man front that they had last year with guys walked up on the edges. That is where like a guy like Charles Harris won last year, was as an outside linebacker pass rusher in space. With the opportunity to have a two-way go on the tackle and kind of winning outside with speed. So again, this is just food for thought. It's in a vacuum, and it's just the idea of what aligning Hutchinson a little wider and playing him out of a two-point stance, which is him standing up without a hand in the dirt. It's just 2-point, both feet touching the ground, nothing else. Hutchinson has openly talked about this in the run-up to the draft, that he preferred playing out of a two-point stance. And my thoughts on that are that it's a rhythm thing for him, that he can see what's developing in front of him much quicker standing up and seeing it. So diagnosing run versus pass happens a lot easier if you don't have to peek through bodies and you don't have to run in, through gaps and win playing, very physical football to then figure out pass versus run. It's a lot easier to do that standing up. And I think it's just one of those things for him that he just gets into a better rhythm as a player and maybe playing with more confidence, knowing what's coming. It's not a knock on him at all. It's not a limitation. It's one of those things where for him, he seemed to get into a rhythm, lined up a little wider out of a 2-point stance at Michigan than in any other way. And he was explosive doing that stuff. Lining up a little wider and forcing the tackles to play him one-on-one would allow him to win a lot more matchups. And like we mentioned a few minutes ago, he'd have two ways to win. He can win inside or he can win outside. And he's quick enough and powerful enough to do either. He does love the inside hand swipe move where he sets an offensive tackle to kick out too far. And then he goes back inside, and as the offensive tackle's inside hand is coming out, he kind of swipes it off of him, and then just rocks back. It just goes back inside clean, and that's sort of his move. He loves that move, whether it's a single hand swipe or a double hand swipe. And we're not seeing any of that kind of stuff right now because when he does do that stuff, it's out of a 3-point stance, and it's more. He's more physically. The tackles are just able to physically sustain longer and block him a little easier where they do have him lined up. So if we're able to let him play a little more out wide where he can force an offensive tackle to both overset because of his speed and quickness, or if the tackle recognizes I'm getting beat inside, Hutchinson's quick enough and powerful enough to reduce the outside shoulder of the tackle and beat him wide with speed and quickness. And I think that's what fans are wanting to see more, is this one-on-one. They want to see him win in more of a one-on-one capacity than where he is right now. And right now it almost seemed like the Lions are okay with him setting up to be double teamed almost consistently all the time. So that's just kind of it in a nutshell. I think if the Lions want to really dial up the ability for Aidan Hutchinson to be more productive, this is what they would do. It's one of the ways they could do it. But then it comes at a cost, and that's the conversation that I'm sure they're having. What's the cost? We don't have. I don't have a great answer for what the cost would be. It would mean that the interior guys would have to be. Maybe, somebody like Pascal would line up inside Hutchinson there, and his quickness would force the guard to stay home there. That's something that could happen. I don't know that Pascal's going to play this week, but it's not a surprise. Losing John Kaminsky to I think it was broken hand, reduced both. It altered their pass rush plan. So they need somebody with some quickness who can penetrate the guard between the gap and the center to kind of make the guard stay home there. And if you are lining up Hutchinson a little wider there, it will allow him to win more both inside and outside. It's kind of the basic thoughts on that. It's just as a summary, one of the things that offensive coordinator Ben Johnson is doing is he's putting the Lions offensive players in a position for them to be most successful based on the things that they do well. I would say that if you're doing that for defensive end Aidan Hutchinson, you're deploying him in a 2-point stance and allowing him to play more one-on-one versus a tackle, using his speed and quickness and power. Also in an area where his shorter arms actually kind of help him. Believe it or not, in one-on-one situations where he can play with power and we could see some bull rush where it doesn't look like that's happening right now because he's going against anchored guards, and that's tough. So that's it. It's again, it's food for thought. Doesn't mean it's going to happen or that it should happen. It is one of the ways that I think they can get more production out of him. But it's a team game, so if you're getting more production out of one player but losing elsewhere, maybe that's not something that you would be doing. But again, we're talking about just a singular focus on the things that they may be able to do to get Hutchinson a little more impactful as a pass rusher and make his job a touch easier. If you have any questions, Slack chat, you can hit me up on Twitter. That's kind of where it is. That's just my thoughts on what the Lions can do for Hutchinson to make things a little easier for him.